Hi guys, Queen of Flannel here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a Watch Me Whip video. Yeah, I thought it would be good to just take a chill day and work on not Thor. That will be coming. I have some ideas for our Thor page, but I thought we would work on this guy right now. I've shared some images of our Oni over on Instagram and also on the community tab. So I was out of town over this past weekend visiting some family. I went and spent the weekend with my husband and my son, and we visited my grandmother. Um, and it was the weather was kind of junky, and of course because COVID cases are up, we kind of just stuck around the house. We went out to dinner one evening, and then we had a nice Easter dinner at the house. But in between, I started working on the Oni in Mythic World, and I'll talk a little bit real quick before I start. So I did, my typical Kerby marker base with colored pencils, and I used a couple supplies that I haven't really used a whole lot. So I didn't take a bunch of stuff with me. I just grabbed a set of pencils and a set of markers, and so this is the first time I have done this technique using the Caran Brushmarker Pros as a base, and then using my Caran Dash Luminance to do my detail work over top. And I was telling a friend these would not be my first choice to do this technique with. So if you're unfamiliar with the Brushmarker Pros, these are supposed to be designed to be used as like a watercolor. So you lay your marker down, and then you can take a paintbrush or a water brush and blend them out like watercolor. And I've played around with them in that manner on some personal projects, and I've had some issues with them, but that's something we can talk about in a different video. And that's not to say that you can't use them as just a marker, which is what I did here. I found them to be pretty streaky, which you can still kind of see a little bit on this side over here where I haven't gone back in and started doing, my a bunch of my detail work with the pencils like I have on this side. But it can be done. You just may have to put in a little bit more work to kind of correct out some of the marks if you use this method or use this supply. And I guess that works out with the luminance, because I find the luminance are really good for um filling in larger areas with color versus the polychromos, which is typically what I use as my detail pencil when I am working with this technique. So it worked. I definitely don't hate the outcome so far. My only issue with the luminance in this instance was trying to make sure that I keep some of these like lines and details, because certain colors in the luminance are very opaque, and I like to keep Kirby's lines. He went through all of that work to give us all of these little like detail, like shading lines and whatnot. I don't want to completely like color over those. But yeah, so yeah, so basically I started out with my base was this orange red, and then I just started going through with a variety of the orange and red shades of the luminance. Let me grab a couple here and I'll show you guys what I was working with, and we're gonna use the same thing for the body. Find it. Where are you? Okay, so after I laid my marker down, I went in with, this is 850 Cornelian, and this was my corrector color, my, you know, to adjust out some of the streaks and whatnot. So this was the first color that I laid down over top of the orange marker base. And then in these little areas and in crevices and things like that, I went in with 061 permanent red and 585 Perylene Brown, you know, up in a lot of these edge areas. And then on top of the Perylene Brown, I went in with 639 Dark Indigo and brought back some of the detail and whatnot up in and around these corners and crevices. And then if I really, really felt like I needed a little bit extra, I went in with 009 black, but that was very, you know, very small usage of the black, and mainly just to bring back some of the detail lines and whatnot. And kind of a funny story. Looking at this image with no color on it, I wasn't sure what this area down here was at first. I thought it was like the mask, and then, you know, the skulls were like decorative and whatnot, and that this was some kind of smoke or whatnot. And I was all set to go in with a nice complementary yellow green color just to balance out the abundance of orange and red. And so I was poking around on Instagram because I wanted to see what other people have done in this book, since it is fairly new and just came out. And there are a couple people out there that I've seen that have completed the Oni page, and seeing other people's finished works made me realize this is his body. This is his torso. So these are the shoulders, and then this is like his collarbone area, and this is his upper chest, and the skulls are a necklace. So thankfully I saw that before I went in and colored him green, because I would have been super sad if I had done that and then found out afterwards that it was his body. And so then I ended up going back in and doing the base of it in the same orange as the mask. Only thing was, by the time I figured that out, I'd been working on it for like a day and a half, and the mask up here, there's got to be like 10 to 12 layers of pencil on top of this. So if I had realized this was his body sooner, I would have been able to kind of keep track of my tones and whatnot. Since I've already put so much pencil up on the top, now trying to make sure that I balance it out on the bottom, and that it doesn't look like a completely different tone. But we're gonna roll with it and we will see what happens. So how far up here? So this is the 061 permanent red, and this is just kind of to balance out a little bit of the the Cornelian that I used over top of the marker. It's obviously not going to be an exact color match to the marker. They're completely different brands and whatnot, and that's fine. So this just kind of helped me balance it out, and it gives it a little bit of texture and variation, so it's not just a flat orange. And I just went in and added a little bit of this around, you know, some of these corners and up here before I went in with the Perylene Brown, and it was just a lot of, you know, back and forth and you know, swapping out pencils and just stepping back and looking at things and seeing where I needed to go in and, you know, add more of my colors. And then over on the other side over there, you can see I went in and I gave some shadow to across his shoulder. So this part right here was just, you know, back and forth between the Cornelian and the permanent red to give me some nice variation in my colors here. And then go in with, I'm gonna need another one of the Perylene Browns here. I actually use, when I use the Luminance, which I don't use very often, but this is one of my favorite colors in the Luminance set is the Perylene Brown. It's almost like a magenta. It's a reddish brown. And it's one of my very favorite colors to use out of this set, which I just said. So I started off with this up around the corners. And then my son gave me the idea of using the this color inside some of these little swirls just to give it some dimension. You know, he was like, yeah, he's like, it looks pretty flat with just the orange. You should go in with a different darker color on some of the little like decorative areas of his body. And I said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And so I went in and on the other side here and started adding into some of these little areas. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this this book. I know that there are some varied opinions out there of it, and that's okay. You know, it's not for everybody, and it is quite a bit different from Kerby's last couple of books. But it's been fun to play around with. I actually ordered a copy of the UK edition of this book. I have come to realize that there is a definite difference in the paper between the US and the UK editions, and the UK editions enjoy water media way more than the US editions do. So I kind of have plans to do the UK edition, the whole book, in water media. I might see if I can do the whole thing in ink. And I will put my my colors in the description below for those of you that are interested. I'll put the marker colors that I used for these skulls as well. And I think I used the same color on the skulls as I did for the horns and the teeth on his mask. I just changed the tone of it a little bit with different colors on the pencil. But yeah, so I will leave those down below for you guys. And I hope everybody has been well. I haven't really done a color in chat in quite some time. I've been trying to stick to tutorials and whatnot, just to give myself something to focus on and talk about, because my life has been pretty chaotic, and chaotic in a way that I'm not quite sure I'm ready to like openly discuss. You know, aside from the fact that we almost lost our dog. Which even that, I'm not sure how in depth I want to talk about, but it was just exhausting, and it happened very suddenly, and you know, we were back and forth with her, I would say, over the first half of the first week of this starting, like 4 times. And the first visit, they diagnosed her with an ear infection, which I knew I knew that was coming. She showed all of the signs and symptoms of having an ear infection. So like that was, I was prepared for. And it, you know, if it had been just as simple as the ear infection, it would have been, you know, no big deal. I mean, we have 11 animals in this house, and out of everything that I have dealt with our animals, an ear infection would have been it would have been simple. And so took her into the emergency vet because of course it kicked off on the weekend, and that was the only thing that was open. And because she was displaying some vestibular symptoms, we decided it was not prudent to wait until Monday morning when our vet opened. And so yeah, they diagnosed her with a pretty bad ear infection, gave me, you know, topical antibiotics, ointment to put in her ears, and some pain medication. And I thought, okay, that's we'll deal with that. And Monday morning rolls around and she's not really doing any better. And so I called our vet and they said, yeah, let's go ahead and bring her in. So we took her into our vet and they concurred with the emergency vet's diagnosis. And then also wondered if she was having, if she was displaying pain symptoms from the issues that she has with her hips. She has hip dysplasia and some issues with her knees, and so we've had her on pet formulated CBD oil and whatnot for quite some time as a to help with that, and she's been doing really well. We also wonder because she has a congenital defect with the base of her spine, whether or not that kind of like dulls her pain receptors to that half of her body. She's 10. She's a pug and clearly did not come from the best of breeding situations, but that's a whole other discussion. But anyway, so they concurred with continuing with the antibiotics, and then they decided they wanted to try her on a different pain medication to help with her hips, and so they put her on gabapentin. And I thought, okay, we'll give it a try if there's, multiple things going on here. And I've been on gabapentin before. It didn't really do anything for me, but they seemed to think that maybe that would help. And so we took her home, and I'm trying to remember if it was, when was it, Monday or Tuesday? I'm trying to remember my timeline here. It all kind of blurred together. Think it was Tuesday then. So yeah, so emergency vet on Sunday, our vet on Monday, and then Tuesday she was still showing vestibular symptoms, and at this point they had kind of said, yeah, if you're not seeing any improvement within 24 to 48 hours on the ear medication, you should have her rechecked. And then Tuesday afternoon, I had her out in the backyard and watched her run full speed like nothing down the backyard chasing after a squirrel. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're on the mend. And no more than that happened, an hour and a half later, and she's in the living room with my husband, and she like tips over. He has her up on the sofa with him, and she just kind of like tips over onto her side. And when he called me to come in, I thought she was having a seizure. She was on her side on the sofa, panting like her life depended on it. Her legs were like, front paws were like straight out in front of her like this. And I thought, oh crap, here we go again. We lost our previous pug to a neurological issue when we were stationed in Germany, and so of course, that was the first thing that my mind went to. But she was responsive to commands. She was responsive to stimuli. It just honestly to me looked like she was having a massive panic attack. And of course, with pugs, because their respiratory systems are already at a disadvantage, when they pant or get excited or breathe heavy, it can be kind of distressing because they make a whole bunch of extra noise. And so I called the emergency clinic back and I said, "Yeah, I don't know what to do with her." And they're like, "Oh, is that, is that her in the background?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, that's her." And so they went back and talked to the vet, and the vet said I guess told the person at the counter that I needed to call vet triage, which is a new thing they've started doing here, to mitigate, some of the um bringing your pets into the emergency clinic. So you dial in with a vet online, and with a camera or your phone, and you basically like explain to them what's going on with your pet and let them visually see what's going on with your pet, and they help you decide whether or not you need to like go somewhere, and then they help you find a place to take your pet. If they determine yes, your pet needs to be seen, or they'll tell you no, I think based on what I'm seeing that you can wait to go to your vet in the morning. And so I dialed in, cost me $50, and I had Ellie like in my arms in my office, and breathing like she's breathing like an asthmatic, open mouth, just like, you know, um, like she couldn't catch her breath. And so he's like, "No, you need to go, you need to take her over there." And so he ended up dialing into their schedule and was like, "Yeah, she's bringing the dog over like now." And so I walk in with her, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to send her back as a stat because like, you know, she clearly has a lot going on." And so I'm pretty knowledgeable with certain animal stuff, and so I was monitoring like her, her gums and whatnot, and she was oxygenating properly. She wasn't turning blue. Her tongue wasn't turning blue. Her gums were nice and pink. It was just legitimately like a dog anxiety attack, and I had nothing on hand to be able to like handle that situation. And so they took her back, and then they put me in a room, and um it took about an hour and a half, and somebody finally came in and said, "Yeah, she's stable, she's doing good." We gave her a little oxygen to help her, help her calm down. And they were doing like a real basic neurological workup and checked her ears again and all that stuff, and came in and talked to me. And by the time the vet actually came in and talked to me, they were like, we're concerned that there is definitely a neurological component going on here. She was having some, the proprioceptive deficits is what they call it. So if you take the dog's, one of the dog's paws, and you turn the foot under, they should regulate, pick the foot up, and put the foot back flat. And typically, if there's neurological deficits, they won't correct their feet. And so Ellie has always had some of that with her rear legs. We've known about that since she was a baby, but then they said they were having issues with one of her front feet, which then that was a concern, because up until this point we hadn't had any ataxia or deficits with the front feet. So obviously we're like, okay, well, um and then they mentioned a couple other things that they were concerned about. And so she's like, "I'm gonna go try a couple other neurological tests like that I can do with her here, just a couple things just to see where we're at." And so when she came back a little while later, she's like, I honestly don't know what to do with her right now because she's stabilized and improved, and now she is responding to, you know, picking, she's picking that front foot up when you move it, and she's up and she's alert. And so then they recommended a neurologist, and I knew that this was going to be a discussion that my husband and I were going to have because, as I mentioned, Ellie is 10, and so if we were to take her to this neurologist, it was 2 hours away, and even if we just went in for a consult, they're going to want to do an MRI. And so then kind of my thing is, with a 10-year-old dog, what if they come back and they say, yeah, she's got a brain tumor? Like, I'm not going to put a 10-year-old dog through invasive brain surgery. So then it's like, at that point, we know that there is an issue, but our options for her at this age would be limited. And so I started doing some research on my own and just kind of keeping track of what she was doing, and what was happening when she would go into like an episode. And I came across a bunch of videos on YouTube and things on the internet about something they call idiopathic vestibular disease, also called old dog syndrome. And from everything that I read and watched and listened to other people's stories, it comes on in senior dogs typically, very, very suddenly. And it mimics a lot of the symptoms of a stroke. And most of the owners who have experienced it have thought their dog had a stroke. Dog is fine 1 minute, and then the next is stumbling all over like a drunk. There's also some eye rapid eye movements. They call it nystagmus, that usually go along with it, and head tilt, on top of the unsteady gait and whatnot. And Ellie did have some of the symptoms of this. So then it was, okay, well, we already know she has a really nasty ear infection. It was worse on the right side, and that was the side that we were seeing some of the neurological deficits more on the right side. And then I also noticed that when she would go into one of these heavy panting episodes, she would lean to the right. It was almost like she wasn't really aware of where her body was in relation to the environment. So she would just kind of like sink to the right. And so then, I wondered if, on top of the ear issue, that she was having vestibular episodes, like doggy vertigo, in addition to this. And so it was just throwing her for a loop. She would get dizzy, she would get anxious, and then she would start to pant and essentially have an anxiety attack. And so I started keeping track of what was happening and when. And the day after I took her to the emergency vet, so that was a Tuesday, and that was our third vet trip. We had a good morning. She was up and about. She had not really lost her appetite throughout the majority of this whole ordeal, but I did notice that there were certain foods that she used to really like that she seemed to not really be interested in anymore, and that she was having issues chewing on that right side. So we switched her to a wet food diet, and she was doing fine on that. So Wednesday morning, we had a good morning. By afternoon, we had people doing work on our house, so it was loud outside because they were up on our roof. And she started having an episode around like 2, 3 in the afternoon, and it went on for about 5 or 6 hours. I could not calm her down. I tried everything, and having dealt with anxiety myself, just trying to figure out, we ended up sitting in the dark bathtub because it was the quietest, coolest area in the house. And finally, after about 5 hours, she just was so exhausted, she passed out. We got her to calm down. I gave her a gabapentin, and she ate dinner, and she was okay until about 11 o'clock that night, and she was on our bed and woke up in a complete and utter panic. And so I didn't want to wake my husband up because he already, he gets up super early for work. And so I took her out to the living room, and I was up with her all night. She would finally, she would settle for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then she would wake up, and she would start panicking like all over again. I think this was the first time that it had happened. I'm going to turn the book because I need to change the angle here for my shadow. This was the first time that it happened where she peed herself. Up until this point, we hadn't had any issues with that, but it was heartbreaking. There was nothing that I could do to comfort her. And so this went on all night. 6 o'clock in the morning, I called the emergency vet clinic back, and I said, please, I need to bring her in. We've been like this since midnight. And of course, they could hear over the phone, and so they had me bring her back in. So this is vet trip number 4, and of course, they rush her back as a stat again. And I sit in a room, and then vet number 4 comes in, and vet number 4, out of everybody that I had seen, not my favorite. She, the first thing she says to me when she comes in basically is, well, I'm an inpatient vet. I deal with inpatient animals, vets that have, or animals that have already been admitted into the clinic. She's like, I don't usually deal with inbound emergencies. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, that makes me feel real good. That was her introduction to me. And basically, well, I haven't even gotten to check out any of my patients yet, basically because she was dealing with my dog that had been brought in as an emergent situation. And so then she comes back, and she, gives me the song and dance about the neurologist. And I said, yes, we're discussing it. And she was really like, well, if you call at 9, when they open, you'll be able to get an appointment. And she was really heavily pushing the, taking her to the neurologist. And like I said before, not against it, but again, 10-year-old dog. So, And then she comes back in and asks me like what I thought was going on, and I was basically like, I think that she got dizzy, she panicked and had like a doggy anxiety attack. And so then she was like, no, she's showing other neurological symptoms. She found uh faciocranial deficits on the right side, with like the right side of her mouth. And then she said something about her right eye not responding to a certain, stimulus that she tried to do with her. And that she's like, well, I don't think it's anxiety. I think it's something in her brain, which, I mean, the vestibular system is part of your brain. So like, she wasn't, I mean, not completely incorrect, but she made it sound like she thought that there was a problem in the part of her brain that controls her respiratory system. And so obviously if that's the case, then like, we're looking at quality of life. But then um my thought afterwards was like, well, if that was the case, we would be having this issue all of the time. The panting would be non-stop. She would not have these periods of latency where she seemed to be perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden wasn't. And then of course the vet was kind of like, well, yeah, I think she got dizzy. And I'm like, that's pretty much what I just told you, is that I think she got dizzy and she panicked and then went into an episode. But she was pretty heavily convinced that Ellie had either a tumor or brain lesion, which obvious, possibilities. Um, and again, heavily pushed me taking her to this neurologist like 2 hours away. But then said that what she could do is, make sure there was nothing legitimately wrong with her heart or um her lungs, but they would have to sedate her to do x-rays. And I said, you know what, let's just go ahead and start with that right now, because if sedating her helps calm her down from, the heavy breathing, let's just go ahead and start with that. Um and then she kind of left a a a crappy comment in my record that basically stated, well, that she had told me that Ellie needed to go to the neurologist and I wasn't going to do it. And I'm like, really not necessary to put something like that in the notes. Like, just leave it at that you recommended a neurologist and that we were discussing our options. So then she's like, yeah, it's going to take me a couple hours to get to her, but she's stable for right now. So I left her there for a couple hours, and they sedated her, and x-rays came back good. No visible issues with her heart or her lungs. And so picked her up, and she spent the majority of the day sleeping. And then we had no anxiety issues for the rest of the day, probably because she was, sedated. And then we kind of started realizing it was only happening in the evening, especially around the time that we start winding down to get ready, for bed. And so then I'm like, okay, well, is there some cognitive things going on? They say in like humans who are dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's, there's something they call sundowner syndrome, where basically your circadian rhythm flips and you sleep more during the day and you're more awake at night. if you know, she was having issues with her vision and not being able to, you know, see as well in the dark was kind of, you know, amping her up. And so I ended up picking up a prescription for an anxiety medication from our vet, and we tried that for a few days. And then as she kind of recovered farther, started trying to get her outside more and go for like a walk in the evening to wear her out. I tried only using the anxiety medication if I felt like she needed it, but then of course by the time I realized that yes, she did need it, she was so far gone that it took us forever to get her to calm down. So I changed my tact, and for the first few days after that, I was feeding her in the evening and then giving her the anxiety medication, and then we would go on a walk. So it takes about an hour or two for you know, for the anxiety medication to kick in. And so my hope was that if we wore her out, you know, before she had a chance to get anxious, she would just fall asleep. And then the hope was that we could um, taper the medication off to an as needed basis. And so she's done pretty well. We did give her a dose of it the other day before we came back on our car trip, because she was just wired for sound on our our drive out there. But she did really well while we were there. And you know, we're just, she's at the age now where you just do what you can. Love her. She she gets what she gets what she wants, you know. And we'll love her for as long as she's with us and do what we can for her, and as long as she's happy and eating and doing all of those things, just accepting that we are settling into senior dog time. And so I yeah, I was trying to find a way to like share my story with people without completely like going off the rails with the channel. So if you've made it this far, I appreciate it. Hopefully, you know, that it hopefully it could help somebody else, you know. It was just, I didn't want to give up on her. I also didn't want to, you know, I didn't want her quality of life um to suck. And so, but yeah, she's doing well. Hopefully we just keep her on course, make some senior dog life adjustments, and yeah. I'm actually really pleased with, for the most part, with the way this looks. This needs to be cleaned up over here on this side a little bit. But I kind of like the texture over top of the edges here. I'll just clean this up with the Caran Dash blender here. And then I gotta go in and do these little spikes. But alright. I'm pretty pleased with how our guy is turning out. So I think that's gonna be where we stop for today. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch the video, to listen to me ramble about what's been going on. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified when I post additional content. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.